I have a problem, and that problem is that I am addicted to this godforsaken game, Football Manager. And I have another problem. The game makes no sense. The US men's national team player ratings are all over the place. So, in order to settle the score, I had to bring in an expert, someone that knows the inside and out of Football Manager and the US player pool. I needed someone, a true legend of the game, a coach of unknown height and unknown weight, who many consider to be the best football manager of all time. Please welcome Zealand. Hey, Zealand. How are you?
Hot. Right on cue. Right.
Perfect start.
Yeah, no, fine. Great. No, I'm loving it. Okay. Now,
We're going
hi.
to keep that in.
Yeah, no, I would expect nothing less. This is a one take profession. If you can't do it in one take, then we shouldn't be here. I'm excited to be talking U.S. national team because I am often surrounded by people that don't know or don't care or both. And this is nice to be amongst like-minded individuals.
Yes, tough time to talk about the team, though. It's not the greatest of forms that we're in, but I did see the draft that you had for Football Manager, and you were talking about Josh Sargent. You weren't getting any pickup from the group. Nobody really cared about Josh Sargent.
He scored a brace. He scored a brace in the Premier League, but I'll tell you what, he's no Jossie's artist. So
That's true. Or Josie Altidore.
Or Paul Ariola. He's none of those guys. No, those guys would have scored a hat trick in the Premier League. Let me tell you.
That's true, but nothing against Canada. So what can you do? Anyways, this is a U.S. men's national team channel. For anyone that doesn't know you, who are you and why are you here?
I am a Football Manager YouTuber, and I am the only American that does it. And they're just, outside of FIFA, which I generally consider, there are great people that play FIFA, but I generally consider it a toxic cesspool of PvP madness with metas and those sorts of things. There are not a lot of Americans that have actually managed to penetrate the veil of the larger footballing YouTube world. And I, for one reason or another, have been able to do that. And so you have invited me as somebody that makes my life and my living making videos about football, soccer, Football Manager, all that stuff, to talk about the U.S. national team, because I am a huge, as an American, I am a huge U.S. national team fan and watched with bated breath us lose in Hamilton, Ontario. So yeah, there's thrilling stuff. What do you have planned for us today, my good man?
Well, we are going to play a little game where I need your help to determine some of the current abilities and stats of some of our best players. As you know, most of our players are under the age of 24 that are in our starting 11 that are really ready to take the world by storm. And we're going to talk if Football Manager scouts have rated them effectively or not. Are they overrated? Are they underrated? I have a feeling it's going to go one way for a lot of this video, but how are you feeling about this?
I try not to be a homer. It's very case dependent on who we're talking about, because I feel like sometimes they overshoot with the American hype machine, but generally there's a lot of skepticism about how good young players actually are from the United States.
Okay, so I was going to ask, is that generally true of younger players in the FM database, or is that specific to the United States?
I think it's generally true of younger players that are not from Europe and South America. Everywhere else. When you look everywhere else outside of Europe and South America, the ability of those young players does not match up with the number of players from those other three continents, essentially, that end up being top 200, top 100, top 50 players in the world. They're out there somewhere, right? If we're assuming a same level of, there's going to be one South Korean in there, there's going to be a couple of Mexican, American, Canadian people that are making those types of lists. Africa is going to be spitting out people that are making that list. The people that are in those domestic leagues at the time they go into Football Manager don't get rated as highly. And I think a couple of South American and European people obviously get overrated, but that's the same with general global public perception. So it's not like Football Manager is smashing some sort of mold, but there are players out there that Football Manager, as good as they are at scouting, they don't see it until they already arrive.
All right, so I am going to ask you to explain kind of how the scouting works and what some of these stats and things like media personalities, all of those things mean. But I think we should just start with the only American to get minutes and win a Champions League as Mr. Christian Pulisic. Ignore the age. This was taken at the start of a save, I believe. I think he's 23 years old now. This mean? Talk us through just football manager stats in general. 0 to 20, right? Are there specific things that we should be looking for
So
Christian Pulisic?
visually, there's 0 to 20. Somebody made a decision to take their rating system is 0 to 100. And so the 0 to 100 is reduced to a 0 to 20. So you can improve your finishing or something, but it will also still say 14. So the way the scouting system works is Football Manager hires and cultivates a network of scouts all over the world. And so there will be one scout for the Sri Lankan League. There will be a scout for each MLS team. And depending on the level of the league, you'll have more scouts for teams. And what that scout's job is to assign a rating for each of these things on each of these players in the team. And I can imagine that it's just an infuriating process. And not only are they assigning that, they are then assigning for young players a potential ability range, which is somewhere between, it's a 30-point range. And so current ability in Football Manager is assessed on a range of 1 to 200. So Christian Pulisic, somebody like that would have probably like a 145 or a 150 out of 200, where Messi is a 190. I think at his peak, he was a 197 out of 200. Right. So that is essentially the level that you're going to, and the potential ability range being 30 is actually pretty big. It could be from 150 to 180, which is from Christian Pulisic to Kevin De Bruyne. So there's the potential ability range is pretty big. So they don't have to hit the nail exactly on the head for younger guys, but they still have to assign that potential ability range. And that a lot of people play Football Manager. A lot of clubs use Football Manager to scout players. Manchester United has admitted in court proceedings that they use Football Manager to scout players. There's been a lot of different things about that. And so what those potential ranges are really they do affect how other people perceive American players. So it's important to talk about those things.
So I do want to put our scouting caps on a little bit and get away from our American biases. I see things like dribbling, that's very high. That makes sense for Christian Pulisic. Work rate, teamwork is very high. Acceleration and agility is very high. What sticks out to you if you're kind of looking for a player to get into your team and you come across Christian Pulisic?
I think Football Manager captures who he is in real life. I think there are some random things that don't make a lot of sense. His finishing is probably too high. I mean, he's not a great finisher. They've given him the player trait, places shots, and those player traits are what take the raw attributes and they funnel players into doing particular things. And so there are certain players that attempt overhead kicks a la Ronaldo, and there are certain players that Pulisic likes to play 1-2s. Yes, that makes sense. He progresses the play with 1-2s all the time. He placed one shot against Man City on the counterattack, and now everybody just thinks he can pick up the bottom corner
Highlight.
once. Exactly. Balance at 8 doesn't make a lot of sense. That means the match engine, he's falling over a lot. I feel like what makes him a great player in real life and what they do capture in the game is his acceleration, agility, and his ability to control the ball while he's running. That's what makes him a great player. The rest is you're just filling it in, and the mental attributes in particular are so subjective in the impact that they have when you're playing something like Football Manager. The impact that they have and how it makes them look like Christian Pulisic or not is harder to discern. But they clearly have an idea of who he is. He's got a really good weak foot, though, so I'm surprised that they haven't listed that here.
Yeah, and one thing that sticks out to me is sometimes he's captained the U.S. men's national team. He has a 7 in leadership. What does that actually mean in the game engine?
Leadership is the galvanizing effect of the player for other people, which can obviously be a bad thing if the leader doesn't like you. But generally speaking, the ability to play well, to be composed in pressure situations, or when you give up an early goal, you want higher leadership attributes in your team. The more he's respected by the team around him, the more important it's going to be. So
do you think in a scouts
hierarchy? Yeah. Well, scouts should pay attention to that. And I would imagine after his performance against Mexico with the penalty and how he was the talisman in the Nations League final. That would probably go up. But like I said, with the balance, I mean, I watch Christian Pulisic all the time. I am every time Chelsea's playing and I look at the lineup and it says he's on the field, I'm going to try and turn the game on. And I don't see the balance and I don't see the leadership. But at the same time, they give him more credit for his finishing and probably more credit for his work rate and for his creativity than he might deserve. So it giveth and taketh.
All right, so that seems like they've done a good job then capturing Christian Pulisic in the game. I maybe this is a bad first player to do. Overrated, underrated. Do we just want to go 3, 2, 1 and
go for it.
All right, we're going 3, 2, 1. Overrated.
Yeah.
Poor Christian.
He's in poor form right now. I think Alexi Lawless said this well. He says, "Is Pulisic overrated?" And he said, "No, he's underperforming." So, and we saw how good he can be. There's never been an American that played as well in the Premier League for as long as he did during that post-lockout run. I mean, he was Chelsea's best player. And he helped get them into that Champions League spot, and he lit up Real Madrid in the Champions League semifinal. I mean, Americans don't do that typically. And so even though Chelsea signs 85 wingers, they always are adding more wingers. They don't know how to stop, or more, the front three players. He's always going to be fighting for playing time. He's not always fit, which makes it even harder to get into the team when you have so many guys to compete against. And now I'm just putting too much pressure on himself. We know how good he can be. I think you just have to make him inconsistent. But in Football Manager, those attributes are pretty darn good. I mean, that's somebody that can run at and take on basically anybody in the world and finish pretty efficiently. And I don't know if that's exactly who Christian Pulisic is in real life right now.
Those stats to me said that he was rated as playoff Pulisic and not the up and down Pulisic. Another midfielder for the U.S. men's national team, Juventus legend, I would argue, this year, one of the better Juventus players on the field. I see a lot of green. That tells me he's rated pretty well. Now, to me, in real life, Weston McKennie is one of our best eights, a true box-to-box midfielder. He can play the Mazzella at Juventus. He could potentially drop back. He's played almost every position on the field for Schalke when he was in Germany. Does that translate into these Football Manager stats?
I mean, they made him very versatile. So that heat map that you see right above where it says scout player kind of under his picture, that he can play in a lot of positions. They've given him credit for that. Him at 22 years old, if you wanted to sign him and turn him into a ball-playing center back, if you wanted to turn him into an attacking winger, you could do that. But I think there's one gross oversight. And obviously, when they give them a bunch of green in the mental category, it's because usually they know that the player's better than what they're giving them in the physical or technical category, but they just don't know why. And so they start just throwing numbers into, like, off the ball 17 on McKenna. I don't think he gets 17 off the ball movement, but they don't know exactly how to quantify what makes him good. And so they rightfully have given him a bunch of bravery and aggression and willingness to get stuck in. High determination checks out, high teamwork checks out. I think the gross oversight is the jumping reach, because there are very few midfielders in the world that seem to be more influential. I mean, he's got that Gini Wijnaldum sort of, he just shows up in the box, and especially on set pieces, he just shows up in the box and puts the ball in the back. He's got, how many goals does he have? 8 or 9 in a U.S. uniform, as somebody that played as a deep-lying midfielder for a good portion of his United States career. 12 jumping reach feels really low. He's 6'1", but he elevates. He's dunking on people, to use an Americanism, on corners, and he had a great header against Canada that was saved well by a guy in sweatpants. And his heading's only 14 too. And I think that probably the biggest oversight, they do acknowledge that with the player trait gets into opposition area, but he is a very intimidating aerial presence. Like, his finishing is too high. He doesn't finish a ton with his feet. He's got maybe 2 goals in the U.S. with his feet. The rest are all aerial. His jumping reach and heading should be higher. That's my take. Everything else seems fine.
No disrespect to the Red Star Belgrade sweatpants on Mr. Boyan. The jumping reach seems insane to me to have so low. Heading at 14, I guess that's high, but At the same time, he's one of the most dangerous players on the US, along with our two center backs, usually Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson, that can get up. And Weston McKennie, you mentioned a few players that he reminds you of. He kind of reminds me of Marwan Fellaini when he was in his prime Everton days, just like completely bossed on corner kicks, free kicks, set pieces. All of that is within Weston McKennie's reach.
Yeah, that, and I think his first touch is better than they give him credit for. It's really hard to take the ball away from him. You see that all the time with Juventus. You see it all the time with CONCACAF qualifying, is that he'll just have the ball and three guys will be around him, and it doesn't look pretty. It's uniquely American, this style of dribbling that he has, but they won't take the ball from him. It'll be this chaotic mess, and then he pops out the other end with the ball, and nobody took it from him. So maybe improve his ball control, which would be first touch and dribbling a little bit.
I think only Yunus Musa has a smoother way to get out of trouble in the midfield than Weston McKennie.
Moose is definitely smooth. McKennie's definitely not, but he does it at the same clip. I mean, he just doesn't lose the ball. It is.
Okay, so Weston McKennie has also had some issues off the field for the U.S. men's national team. I just want to touch on the right side of this where it says personality and media description. What do those actually mean in terms of these players in Football Manager?
So the media description is something accumulated over time in the game. Obviously, it's given in this case as tenacious midfielder, but that is because of his high bravery and aggression and his high stamina and work rate. So that's what's given to a tenacious midfielder. It's somebody that commits to challenges, that's running constantly. But the personality is a reflection of these things called hidden attributes. There are about 8 or 9 attributes that you can't see that are reflected in personality in something called media handling style, which is something that's you can see if you go to like overview and information. And it's anything from adaptability to professionalism to consistency to controversy, which is something they can jack up. But I know Football Manager is also keen to avoid lawsuits. And so typically on real players, they won't put those hidden attributes too low, because then the player can come back and sue for defamation or libel or slander or whatever it would be called. It's not slander, that's spoken word, but libel, I think. And you could say, well, I'm not volatile. Right? I'm not saying Weston McKennie would do that, but it's something that Football Manager is aware of. And so you won't find a lot of players in the game that have volatile or confrontational in their media handling style or their personality.
Yeah, so those are only for regens, really.
Players that are generated as you play through the game, unfortunately. Well, probably fortunately for Weston, because that whole performance he had in Nashville, getting himself thrown off the team for a little while, probably would have jacked up his controversy rating a bit.
True, but this was taken before then, so good on Weston McKennie. Lucky for him, he's staying out of trouble at the time of this picture. And I do want to shout out that you have a USA or North American League setup that you can download for Football Manager, and I'm currently working through my season as the Bahomes coach, and so nice. I don't think that's a real team, but Jake Landau is the coach.
Yeah, over 90% of them are actually real, and then the ones that aren't are essentially so we created this great it's a 7-tier US database that's meant to create a realistic kind of promotion relegation system for the United States that would mirror England, but not exclusively. Like, it breaks into conferences pretty quickly, and once you get, I think, down to 3 or 4, the 4th tier, it breaks into 8 different local divisions, from Cascadia to Great Lakes to New England and all those sorts of things. The only teams that aren't real are we have all the Native American tribes have a club. And so the Native American teams, particularly in New England and in kind of the Midwest, there are a lot of Native American teams you take over. And all the other major U.S. sports teams have an affiliate club. So turning U.S. sports into more of a club sports. You can play as the Golden State Warriors or the New York Yankees, if you're the Boston Red Sox, if you want to. And those clubs have better facilities and those sorts of things. It's a blast, and it has dynamic promotion and relegation, because that's what you need to have to preserve the regionalness. So if in the second division, every team that gets relegated is from New England, well, that has a ricochet effect on who can get promoted and so on and so forth, all the way down, to keep everything balanced. There was a bear to put together, but fortunately we had a smart team to do it. And it's if you ever thought about playing Football Manager, it's a good place to start. It's completely free and all that stuff if you didn't know how it worked. We made it, and now it's yours.
I was starting a save at RB Salzburg, and I just got the itch. I knew I needed to play in the US. I went searching, I found what I needed to, and now the Bahama team is in luck because I'm there taking them. Although you made it difficult, there's only one spot for automatic promotion in the 7th division. So we'll
Yeah.
see how we do.
Oh,
But
it's weird. There's a lot of requirements for financial stuff, and you can't over promote. And then, more promotion spots might open up depending on who gets relegated, and then it just bound. I mean, the possibilities are almost
ooh,
infinite.
I
Well,
didn't know.
it depends on it depends on how many people are getting like passed down to the Great Lakes region from the area above. And so if it's directly kind of linear, then it makes sense. But each league has to keep the same number of teams in it, and so it can get crazy. But it's the only way it would work in the U.S. And to me, it's a lot better than the MLS rules. I think it would be a great way to set it up in real life. We've laid the blueprint for them.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of mad billionaires though, or multi-millionaires.
Yeah. Well, they bought in a part of the league. Cool. Give them one of the teams, and then set up the relegation. They'll figure it out eventually. I just don't know.
So this was a very long way of me asking you for some advice in the Weston
Wow.
McKinney judgment area,
Right.
which is, does mental matter at all, or should we really be looking at physical and technical stats when I'm thinking about, is he overrated or underrated?
I think with the type of player that Weston McKinney is, you've got to bolster the mental because he's obviously physically talented, but he's not incredibly physically talented. I think his elevation, his jumping reach is something they should need to change. Everything else, it makes sense to me. He's not slow, but he's not incredibly fast. His balance is a big part of his ability to keep the ball, so that makes sense. But it's not like you watch Weston McKinney and you go, "What a sumptuously technical individual!" Right? I mean, when you watch Gio Reyna, the way he shapes the ball, that's what you're talking about when you look at technique. Weston McKinney doesn't have the same technical level, and so yeah, I understand why they tried to balance it out with the mentals. I just feel like we've covered what I felt like they missed on already, but I don't think it's a bad way to do it. I think there are types of players like Weston McKinney that you need to show out mentally for them.
Yeah. All right. So overrated or underrated? 3, 2, 1. Underrated.
Yeah, he's underrated.
Okay.
Well, I tweeted recently. I think he's the best. I think he's the best team in the U.S. national team or best player.
Yeah. I mean, at least on form, he has to be at this point.
Yunus Musa disappears for stretches of a match. Weston McKinney is on the ball every 45 seconds when the U.S. is playing. He's all over the field. He's the only player Gregg Berhalter's given any freedom to, and so he roams all over the place. You can see that Wiz Khalifa hair that he has just flopping all over, and
beautiful,
he just
flowing. Receives
the ball. He looks to progress the ball on set pieces. He's the guy we're looking for. Weston McKinney is always involved. He's talking trash to somebody. He's the best player the U.S. has.
Most original celebration.
Yeah, he's got the Harry Potter the wand.
I guess that's not original if you take it from somewhere else, but
I always wondered what spell he was casting.
We'll give it to him. What do you think? Leviosa?
Yeah. It's Leviosa. If he said that in like a pitch side mic after a big goal.
How could I do that?
I'd pass out. I'd pass out from the incredible moment that I was watching.
We'll have Zealand cam on for this next game.
Yeah, I really prefer not to be on camera when the U.S. national team is playing, typically.
Yeah, we'll see what happens once we make the World Cup. Because we will
beat under us. And people are making it. We're still very, very, very likely to make it. People are blowing it out of proportion. Panama still has to play us, Mexico, and Canada. So we're sitting here like, oh, Panama is going to put the pressure on us. They haven't played the top half of the table yet. So
yeah, they got their game in Mexico.
I think it's something like even if we lose to Panama again, we still have an over 50% chance of making the World Cup. So it's just deep breaths, beat under us, beat Panama, and you're in. That's it.
Don't say that, Zealand. I want a 100% chance.
I know. And we blew the chance at that by losing to Canada. So now we just do what we can. If we win against under us and Panama slips up, then we'll feel a lot better going into the.
I like how we're kind of talking to our past selves because this video is going to come out the week after we play Honduras. So this is a nice little time capsule for what we were feeling the day before.
If anything other than a win happens against Honduras, this would instead be a 5-alarm fire that we would be talking about. Because if you don't win against Honduras, I mean, they've lost 5 straight matches to team. They just beat El Salvador 2-0.
Yeah. Well said. All right. I think we need a little bit of fun here.
Ah, good.
Because we took through Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic. I had to throw in a true legend, one of the Chievo Verona Captain Americas, one of the many Captain Americas that America has produced in Europe, Michael Bradley.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what you love most about Michael Bradley.
Look, that chip in the Azteca is what I love most about Michael Bradley. His flair being 8, somebody didn't watch that match. I know his normal game doesn't have a lot of flair in it, but the audacity to try a 40-yard chip on the road against Mexico is something I will always respect him for. But what you also have to talk about with Michael Bradley is he's produced great moments, but he also has a remarkable ability to choke. For whatever reason, and this includes at a club level. In the CONCACAF Champions League final, he missed the decisive penalty. I mean, he's just the type of guy that, for better or worse, ends up either scoring. He scored huge goals at World Cups, right? Which nobody in this generation can talk about. Michael Bradley went to a World Cup and scored, what was that, 82nd minute equalizer or something? I can't really remember the situation. And he's gone to the Azteca and scored, which I don't even think Pulisic has done. But also kind of a choke and somebody that it was prone to make the one big mistake where you go, but he's such a great guy and a great leader, and he runs so hard for 90 minutes.
He burned those bridges.
Yeah, he is obviously done with the U.S. national team. I think Gregg Berhalter is more than capable of withstanding. He's more capable of withstanding some lashings in the social media spheres for his decisions. If he called Michael Bradley back up, people they would lose their mind. I would, and honestly, I'd probably rather have Kellen Acosta at this point, because it's just a new generation. And what's the point of taking up a spot in the lineup with Michael Bradley at this point?
Do or die situation. You have Michael Bradley on one hand, Jackson Ewell on the other. Who are you taking?
Bradley. I really don't like Jackson Ewell. There's nothing against him. I'm sure Jackson's a wonderful guy. I just think Michael Bradley's still better. But Jackson Ewell is also this kind of young, unknown guy, so Berhalter can sneak him into a roster, and people go, "Who's Jackson Ewell?" You know, and then they forget about it. If you see Michael Bradley on there, you go, "We're still calling up his corpse." You know, that sort of reaction.
Let's get Landon in here. Let's get Clint in and bring back the boys.
Yeah. Somebody said, we used to amaze people by the fact that we could compete at such a high level with so little in the talent department, where the best players are like a rotational Roma defensive midfielder, a couple of guys that washed out of the Premier League, and Clint Dempsey, at least he hung around for a few years. And that was it. That was what we had. Josie Altidore riding the bench at Sunderland. And we would show up and we would get to the knockout stages of a World Cup, and we qualified like 11 straight times. Virtually no problem. Mexico was in real danger in 2014, and we bailed them out by beating, I think it was Panama at the time, or Honduras. Now we're kind of inverted. We've got all this talent and we're just mystifyingly bad. But Michael Bradley is part of this fond era in the back of my mind where Kyle Beckerman was a part of the team and Nick Raimondo was the third string goalkeeper. And it was just a team of players that you're going, well, we have no chance against Portugal, right? And then they make you believe again.
Jay Demerit, Clarence Goodson, lots of great players. Cherundolo.
Back when we'd hype up, like Terrence Boyd was the next hot thing. You know, there were a lot of the next hot things. These guys would pop up. Julian Green, who I think should be part of the national team now. He's actually he's in the Bundesliga again, remarkably. But it was just such a strange generation, and that we would slap a team together and go beat somebody we really were not supposed to beat again.
I think at that time, Juan Agudelo and Tim Ream were our greatest prospects that we were exporting.
Yeah. Never happened to Matt Beasler. I mean, we're just throwing out names, but Matt Beasler was key. I loved him at the 2014 World Cup. Like, he was so important. When he got hurt, I went, "Oh, we're screwed. We don't have Beasler anymore." Or Gucci Onyewu. I was so many different names. And we never outpossessed anybody. We'd play freaking Costa Rica and give up 60% possession, but I'll be darned.
4-4-2 bunker, baby.
Yep.
Let's go.
Just destroying people.
What else is there to say about Michael Bradley? How did FM rate him?
What I can say, and this is the greatest compliment that you can give to and I'll get to the FM rating in a second, to somebody like Michael Bradley, is I think he was there on merit. I don't think the fact that his dad was the coach played a huge role in him being involved in the team. He absolutely deserved to be on the team, deserved to be the captain, was definitely good enough to be there. That being said, I think that what you really need to do is lower his you raise his flair, because this man chipped the goalkeeper in the Azteca. That's like mandated 12 flair at least for the rest of your life, because he's got that in his
Honorary.
bag. But they've clearly tried to make him not clutch, where they gave him 11 composure, but his pressure rating should probably be pretty low. They've given him perfectionist, which actually indicates a pretty high level of controversy as a personality. It kind of an ornery person. The controversy, I think, is between 10 and 16. I mean, it's above average, which is weird. That's just wrong. I mean, Michael Bradley has no controversy at all that I remember. I don't think he's ever, I don't even know what his voice.
I mean, I will say after the Trinidad and Tobago game that we lost, he made some comments about how the lion doesn't get impacted by the comments of the sheep, and he was talking about people blaming him for his performance. So
Yeah,
the fans did not take well to that after we didn't qualify.
Yeah, I don't think anybody covered themselves in glory except for maybe Taylor Twellman after that. But I don't see him as a perfectionist. I see him as kind of a shaky mental guy, maybe some low pressure, inability to handle high pressure situations, but very high professionalism, so which they've captured with perfectionist. I don't think any of this is too wrong, to be honest with you. He was obviously never a great athlete. His natural fitness is obviously going to be high. It probably his passing and vision should be somewhere around 10s or 11s instead of 14, 15. I mean, he was never a deep lying playmaker. He was not somebody that was picking things out, but his technique, I'm fairly okay with what they've done here. This is very nitpicky stuff on my part, but
I guess like in the scope of other good MLS midfielders, does he stack up to them? Is he better than like your average MLS midfielder in Football Manager?
Yeah. This is a well above average midfielder in Football Manager in MLS.
Okay,
This is somebody that, I mean, his physicals will get worse, but he has high natural fitness and a good personality, and so for 3 or 4 years, he's still going to be able to contribute with his acceleration, agility, and pace not being so low that it's just disqualifying as an individual. This is well above average. I mean, he's not a playmaker, even though he's dangerously close to one with his attributes. He is a space eating, team leading, ball winning type of guy. The 16 marking is probably high, right? I mean, that's pretty darn good marking.
You've talked me into a decision. So are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Overrated.
Yes, he's overrated.
After all that, you still think he's overrated?
All, look, I think that they did a pretty good job rating him, but at the same time, I don't think that if I watch enough MLS, I watch some MLS, but I don't watch enough to be able to say these are the top 5 midfielders in the league. Yeah. Right. But I'd still take Sebastian Lletget over Michael Bradley at this point, and I'd guarantee you that Lletget's attribute. Yeah, I think Lletget's attributes would be worse than that, and which means that Michael Bradley's being overrated somewhere. The more I look at 14 passing, 15 vision, I don't think ever in his life he had that. That is like English championship level. That is an advanced playmaker who has the ability to feel, and that's not where Michael Bradley ever could be.
No, and let's not waste time going to Sebastian Lletget and trying to rate him.
Please no.
All right, next up is going to be our last player, and then we have a surprise last-minute inclusion into this game.
Cool.
I don't know if you know Zealand, but I know who that is. Gio Reyna, though. Let's talk about him. Probably our greatest prospect, the one that everyone is hoping comes good of his potential. But it already looks like, just in his current ability, he's really starting to show some of those skill sets that we know he's capable of. It looks like vision, off the ball, even the determination for a young player. To me, that seems really good. Dribbling, you talked about just how he controls and flows the ball. Passing, all of those things are going at such a high level already for Dortmund and the US national team. What do you see from Gio Reyna and how he's scouted in FM?
See, this is one of those arrays where they know that he is a hot young prospect that plays a lot, but he's hamstring injury. He's been out for a couple of months now, which is a shame because we're working with our memory essentially here. You can't have just gone and watched Gio Reyna last week or with the U.S. national team recently because he hasn't been there. They've just kind of made him pretty good at everything because they don't know exactly what he's good at yet. And to be honest, there isn't a gigantic sample size. You know, he's never gone in and played a 45 game season with Dortmund before. Like he hasn't. He's been part of the rotation. He's been coming off the bench, made probably 20 appearances last year, if I had to guess. Obviously starts playing for the US, but that's a completely different environment. Just when he starts getting used to it and gelling with the rest of the young team that's all in their first qualifying cycle, he gets hurt. And so you can't scout that up anymore. What they are very certain about is his technical level is high. And everybody that talks about Reina and when they watch him and when they coach him, I can't remember which coach it was, but said that the way that Gio Reyna shapes the ball is just the absolute highest level. And that's a word that I have now started using ever since I heard that quote. Because when you watch the way Reina plays passes, it's just, it has that extra, I don't want to call it flair because it is functional. It serves the purpose. It's the difference, I guess, if we're doing a U.S. men's national team video, I can actually make this metaphor. In the NFL, when you have a quarterback that can throw a slant and then you have a quarterback that can throw a slant, you have somebody that he can get the ball to him. And then there's the other person, the Tom Brady's of the world that can hit him in stride. So they don't even break stride. And the moment they catch it, they're running at full speed. That's what Gio Reyna's passing is like, and that's what the shaping the ball means. He doesn't just get the ball to the person, he gets it to them with the best chance to do something with it. And you see it on a couple of his assists to Haaland. He'll play him in and Haaland won't break stride for a second and the ball just hooks right around the defender and sits up for him so wonderfully. So I really think his technique is more realistically probably 16, 17, and I do think that his passing is higher. I'm okay with where his vision is because that's always the two things that combine. I think his technical ability to deliver a ball to places that he sees is very good, but he's still learning how to be a playmaker at the highest level in terms of seeing the field. And obviously with young players, they try and nerf their intelligence a little bit. So the decisions at 11, the concentration at 11, but they've given him really good composure, anticipation. You pointed out determination, which is solid. The off the ball is weird. I've never watched him and been like, wow, look at that movement. But
I just think for me, that's just an indication of a smart player, someone that understands space very well. And for Gio Reyna, I mean, growing up as the son of one of the best U.S. men's national team players of all time, it kind of makes sense that you grew up in that environment, learning from a very young age, just the IQ part of it. I think also what you're talking about is the weight that he puts on passes, the way that he always has it go to the correct foot when he's making a pass. They're small indications that make it a more successful pass or more dangerous pass than just getting the ball to a player and having kind of your stat go up by one for one on your passes.
And they've tried to replicate that technique, but they've given him outstanding ball control for an 18-year-old in Football Manager. I mean, 16 dribbling is tremendous for an 18-year-old. And my Football Manager save him in 2024, and Giovanni Reina was sold for $142 million to PSG. And so Football Manager rates him about as highly as any wonder kid in the game. There are very few wonder kids that can have a claim to being completely better than Reina, and that's your Ilaix Moriba, your Yusufa Mukoko, your Eduardo Camavinga. That's basically it. Everybody else, Gio Reyna is at least able to reach their level most of the time. And so he's at that. He's the only American at that level. He's the only American close to that level. So, and he's been hurt for a couple of months. So we don't actually know if he's going to be able to get to there. I hope he can. I've always said I thought he could be better than Pulisic. And
I mean, there's an argument that he's at a higher height than Pulisic was at the same age.
Possibly. It's a weird thing. They kind of started playing at the same time, and so you're just going, well, how can he cement a regular starting job at Dortmund? He still hasn't done that before he got hurt.
Yeah, I think the injury really killed those chances off. He was just starting to make his case to be in the starting 11. Before we say overrated or underrated, What do you think his best position is in real life?
Honest to goodness, the way he controls the ball reminds me a lot of Weston McKennie. It's much more refined, but they're both tall. And if people don't think about Gio Reyna being 6'1", but he's very much 6'1", long arms, long legs. And so he's got that poor man's Harry Kane, big man control. I think he's a great midfielder. Like as an attacking central midfielder. I know defense isn't necessarily his thing, but if we start setting up a system where he is screened behind him by Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie, who you got to allow Weston to get forward, but you essentially you have those two guys sitting deeper and you allow Gio Reyna to just get in between Aronson, Pulisic, and Conrad de la Fuente. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I think that's
a 4-2-3-1 on offense and a 4-3-3 on defense, basically.
Yeah, you're singing angelic to all the U.S. men's national team fans that are watching, and we just wish that we could have a system like that. All right, Giovanni Reina, overrated or underrated? 3, 2, 1.
Overrated.
I kind of cheated.
That's fair enough. The reason I think he's overrated is, as much as I love Gio Reyna, I don't think he's ever going to be worth $142 million. And so Football Manager has him being able to get there, and so I have to say no, but it's based on potential. I think the ability they've given him now mostly checks out.
I hope you jinx that, and I hope that means he does get a move to PSG.
Yeah, if he moves to PSG and starts starting regularly in that front line, then I think the United States has a shot at a World Cup.
Yeah. So. All right. Are you ready for the bonus round?
I am. I'm mystified as to what I'm on guard. Let's see this.
Who do you think it is?
Give me Josie.
Wrong. Not even a player.
Oh, Gregg.
We're going to the source.
This man off my screen right now.
We got to look at him.
Is his brother in the game? Is his brother in? Can we appraise his brother?
Gregg Berhalter. I think he's left the organization entirely, so probably not.
Good.
We just have to stare at his blank face. Football Manager didn't want him in the game. We don't want to see his face. What? How are you feeling towards Gregg Berhalter right now? And keep in mind, everyone who's watching, this is right after the Canada game.
No, I'm not going to go too hard at him. I think we're assessing Football Manager and what people's perception of him is, scouting wise. Tends to not sit back and protect lead. That's all he does. That's what he starts with, that tactic. Tactical style, vertical tiki-taka. No, that's just not what he does. This man got fired from a club in Sweden for a lack of offense. That's like the famous headline everybody tweets out after we fail to score. The United States has 17 of the 20 most valuable players on Transfermarkt in CONCACAF. If you go off minutes played in the top 5 leagues, even expand that to Portugal, because Canada's got some influential players in the Portuguese league. The U.S. has Canada beat 5-1, and that's without Reina, because he's out with a hamstring. 5-1 in minutes played in the top 6 leagues in Europe. The fact that the United States went up there and lost 2-0 when you have those types of advantages, which if you would compare that to European teams playing each other, I mean, the relativity is essentially like France playing Romania. Like you can't be getting beat like that, and you certainly can't be getting beat like that and then walk around saying, well, we were really dominant. You weren't, Gregg. They had the best chances in the game. You don't remember Matt Turner's double save? That could have been a goal too. Could have been 3-0. Should have been 3-0. Yeah. We had no chances in that game. We weren't sure. Oh, we broke the press. I've never seen a U.S. team break the press as well as we do. When you've got Adams and McKennie and Musa dinking it all over with Dest, we break the press like you wouldn't believe. And then we just stop. And we're like, oh, gee, let's just break down 11 defenders. That sounds like a really fun time. And we just stop. And the reason that Timmy Way is so great is he's the only guy that doesn't stop. He just goes. He just goes forward, and then good things start to happen.
So, Zealand, riddle me this. There's no trait that I'm seeing that says cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Where does that come out?
That was a weird response. I've never thought that Gregg was detached from reality until that response. Now I really am starting to believe that he is kind of convinced of his own greatness. And that's dangerous. I mean, a lot of philosophers will tell you that's dangerous. People that were going through much more trying times than we were, that were writing words and going, hey, the most dangerous person is the one that thinks they know everything and they don't. And it's not his fault. I mean, he's the coach of the U.S. national team. My ego would be gigantic if I was the coach of the U.S. national team. And Jose Mourinho always encapsulates the angst of managers going, look, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm doing a hard job. Let me do that hard job. So I'm not saying that the job is easy, but I'm also saying you should be able to, as a coach with accreditation and a Continental Pro license, the highest level that you can possibly have, look at a match where you lost and realize why you lost. Somebody's ringing my doorbell, so we're gonna have to edit this part out.
No worries.
Yeah, I think we're almost there.
Bring us home.
Sorry, the UPS guy rang my doorbell, but to continue that thought process, I'm more worried than I have been, because I trust somebody that believes in what they believe in. And so even if I don't see why Sebastian Lletget should be in the team, the fact that he's able to hold his conviction and say, no, I think this guy should be in the team. Now I'm worried that he is capable of doing things out of spite, of doing things because he thinks he's right and people are telling him he's wrong. And so he's going to double down instead of changing. I'm worried that sort of stuff is going to start to happen. And you combine that with my constant worry that Don Garber and the MLS are just forcing him to call up these MLS players too, which has always been something I've sweated about. I've heard the rumors that that's what they do. They kind of lean on you to make you call up a certain number of MLS players so that
we'll lump you in with the flat earthers there.
Yeah. Suspicious.
Pretty sus, Greg. Pretty sus, Jay Berhalter, for being on the hiring committee to get him in the door. But I digress.
Yeah, like we're succeeding. He's got the best winning record ever. He's got 2 trophies. But it's, to me,
it shouldn't feel like this.
No. To me, as in my philosophy, as somebody that virtually manages teams for years, and so it's a process, right? Soccer inherently is up to chance. It's like poker with hand grenades. Like, one bad bounce, you're screwed, right? The guy in Qatar missed a penalty, or else we were tied, right? Like Qatar, and us. Like, their whole team is in their domestic league, just like playing friendlies against each other the entire year to get ready for that. But it's a game of inches. And so what you have to focus on is the process. Did you deserve to win? Did you do the right things to win? Were you executing the right plays? And look, on his day, Ricardo Pepi's going to miss a couple chances, and you can't crucify the kid for that. Or Pulisic's going to cut in, and that's going to be his chance to shoot, and the ball's just going to get away from his foot. That happened once when he was trying to isolate against that right back for Canada, the number 2. He just lost the ball. I mean, he made a great move. He just lost the ball. That sort of stuff happens, but the process and being able to capitalize, they're different things. And I think the United States, in a somewhat unfortunate twist, is getting the results, but the process is bad. And it's ugly. And it shouldn't be. We're not that team anymore. Canada's that team. They're us. That's what they're doing. No Canadian would walk in and go, we were more talented.
Yeah.
Every single person that watched that game knows the U.S. was more talented, and it didn't matter. And that's what the U.S. used to do to other teams. We can't be that anymore. We have to be better, and we have to be process-oriented. I mean, Brazil's process-oriented. Even England's process-oriented, except it's for, toughness and large foreheads and those sorts of things. France is process-oriented. Italy is process-oriented. The best teams in the world focus on, this is the way we want to play. This is how we have to play to be successful. We need these things. And the U.S. is still results-oriented. And as weird as it sounds, and I realize the point of sports is to win, and you're trying to win, and Greg has won. Respectfully, I want to win a World Cup before I'm dead. I don't care if we win another Gold Cup. I will care at the time, and I'm really going to enjoy it. But if you focus on results, and your main goal ever is to win the CONCACAF Nations League, you can win it and you can celebrate it, and I will rub it in the face of any Mexican fan or any Canadian fan that tries to get too uppity, right? but the process takes us so much farther. I'm ranting for so long. I'm so sorry.
I'm happy though to give you this therapy session. It
it
seems
is
like you have a lot to
therapy.
say about that result.
Because if I talk about it on stream or a YouTube video, 90% of my audience is not American, and so there's who's Gregg Berhalter?
You can adopt my audience for this purpose.
Welcome. Yes. I appreciate your audience lending their ear.
Tell us how you really feel, Zealand.
So I
3, 2, genuinely though.
That's how I feel.
Okay, great. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's really fair. It's the humility or the absence of humility for me to not be able to even give an inch of, shucks, maybe I should have done something different. Maybe I should have set up the team a different way. Maybe I shouldn't have started Giassi Zardes. Maybe I didn't approach the game the way that I needed to. Like people are making comments about he's trying to take, heat off the team. They're a group that is a bit sensitive, so he's trying to protect them. Well, a way you can do that is to absorb the pressure yourself as the coach and take responsibility. And that's not even happening right now.
No, because everybody knows the team is good. Yeah. We watch them play with their club teams. We know they're good. And we know they care because all of them talk about how much they care. There's only one other, like the commitment is there. Then the talent is there. The tactics. That's the only other thing. It's the only other thing. I mean, that's it. It's not that there are only so many things that go into what it takes to win these games. And I really do think that maybe part of his mind, he thinks he's being Jose Mourinho, but Jose Mourinho wins a lot.
He's won a Champions League.
I know that was a while ago.
Coached and managed the best teams in the world.
When he was at Manchester United, they were doing better for a while than they did kind of after he left. It's like he wins and coaches at a much higher level than a lot of people, I think, try and beat Jose Mourinho. But his unique ability to work the media to reduce pressure on certain players is not something I think Gregg Berhalter should be going for. You got to just sit back. I mean, how simple is it to just go, we lost, we got to be better. We're on to Cincinnati. You just you just say that.
Wow, well said.
Be better. I can be better, and we're done.
I can tell how much you've learned playing Football Manager for years and years.
And I always do the press conferences. That's it. I always do the press conferences. You work on, after a tough loss, controlling your emotions. Look, we got to be better. They played well. Credit to them.
Okay, then I want you to send us out then with your post-game press conference. Tell us how you feel and how we're going to approach this Honduras game.
Well, I think it's important to this is fun. Hold on. Well, I think it's important to maintain perspective. It's a long qualifying process. We got 4 matches left. We've got to do just the best that we can in those 4 matches to get ourselves back to the World Cup where we feel we belong. Today, I thought I saw a lot of good things, but we weren't aggressive enough. We weren't incisive enough, and obviously we didn't maintain our concentration defensively. Part of that is my fault. They did a really good job of getting their 2 forwards isolated against our back line, and those are some kids with a lot of talent. And we need to do next time we get an opportunity to play against these guys, we're going to have to be ready for that. And they were missing some of their most talented players, so we will be ready for that. We'll go back, we'll review the film, we'll talk to the guys, and we'll put a plan together to deal with that better. Now, I feel like we got a lot of the building blocks in place. We broke the press well. We put pressure on them. We controlled possession, but we got to do more with it. And we got to find a way to get our attacking players more involved. But like I said, long qualifying process, and Honduras in a couple of days. If we focus on getting back on track and picking up a win, then hopefully we'll be in Qatar in November. Next question.
Wow. If you don't have chills after that, you are a reptile.
How hard
I don't know.
That, man? Greg, come on. Let's have a phone call or something. Seriously.
All right, Zealand, that's it for us today. Thank you for coming on to talk about the U.S. men's national team. We got a little bit derailed, but who cares? We had a good time.
It's important. It's important stuff. Thank you for having me on. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for watching.